record-shattering heat waves, forests vanishing before our eyes, floods that wash away entire towns, droughts so severe that farms die and hunger spreads. Scientists are warning us, we are fast running out of time. The world's carbon budget is literally burning away. Every week we delay, the damage becomes more permanent. Once a year, the nations of the world meet under one roof, under one banner, to try and steer the course of humanity. To slow the heating, to save what remains, to negotiate a future. In 2025, that meeting was the United Nations Climate Change Conference, better known as COP30. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest in Belém, Brazil, they convened. Expectations were high. The tensions were real. Hope and fear walked hand in hand. This is the story of COP30, Summit of Dreams, Contradictions, and perhaps humanity's last real chance to act before it's too late. So, what exactly is COP, and why was this one so important? The Conference of the Parties, or COP, is the world's central negotiating table for tackling climate change. It's where nearly every country gathers to assess progress, set targets, and attempt global cooperation to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Every COP carries weight, but COP30 was special. It was held in Belém, Brazil, right at the edge of the Amazon rainforest, symbolizing the immense ecological stakes. Our forests, our biodiversity, our planet's oxygen supply, not just abstract carbon numbers. By 2025, the world's emissions and the impacts of climate change had surged. From heat waves to floods, from droughts to wildfires, disasters had become a devastating reality across continents. COP30 came at a dangerous threshold. Many developing countries, small islands, low-lying nations, and climate-vulnerable economies came expecting justice. They demanded climate finance, support for adaptation, and aid for loss and damage. For them, COP30 wasn't about politics, it was about survival. So no, this wasn't just another summit. For millions, perhaps billions, it was a last hope. So, what did COP30 actually deliver? Despite deeply polarized global interests, the conference ended with a negotiated agreement known as the Belém Package, accepted by 195 countries. Here's what made headlines. One of the biggest wins for vulnerable nations was a new target to triple funding for climate adaptation by 2035. This money is meant to help countries deal with the floods, droughts, storms, and rising seas that are already happening. This isn't just a number on a page. For many poorer nations where infrastructure, agriculture, and water systems are fragile, adaptation aid means hospitals that can withstand floods, early warning systems for cyclones, water storage for droughts, and resilient crops. It means hope for millions. COP30 also established a formal just transition mechanism. This is a framework designed to support workers and communities who depend on fossil fuel industries, guiding their shift toward green economies, renewables, and sustainable jobs. This was crucial because climate action isn't just about cutting emissions, it impacts economies and real people's livelihoods. For regions dependent on coal or oil, a just transition promised a bridge to the future, not abandonment. Given the conference's location in the Amazon, forests and nature were central. COP30 resulted in a new tropical forest fund, seeking to channel billions toward preservation. The agreement also formalized 59 global indicators to track things like adaptation, biodiversity, and land use for indigenous communities like the tribes of the Amazon and other forest-dwelling people. This meant global recognition and the promise of support. And while a full fossil fuel phase-out remained contentious, many countries did pledge to invest more in renewables, green industry, and methane reduction. Nations signed on for hydrogen, biofuels, and clean energy infrastructure, modest but meaningful step. But despite these agreements, many critics, scientists, and vulnerable nations left COP30 feeling deeply disappointed. The summit delivered packages, but not the bold, game-changing commitments that the scale of the crisis demanded. Perhaps the greatest failure was that the final text did not include a binding plan or a clear roadmap to phase out fossil fuels, oil, coal, and gas. What many see as the root of the crisis was effectively sidestepped. An earlier draft had included plans for fossil fuel reductions, but that language was removed in the final hours of negotiation due to opposition from several oil-producing nations. For many, this was a betrayal, a deal without real accountability. And what about the money? Yes, adaptation finance was tripled on paper, but the deadline is 2035. Critics warn that's far too slow for communities already facing devastation. The agreement also lacked clarity on who pays, how much, and when. Developing countries fear these promises will remain just words on paper, while floods and droughts don't wait. Even the forest provisions felt more symbolic than sufficient. The new fund was a hopeful sign. But commitments on deforestation, roadmaps, and agriculture emissions were watered down or removed entirely. Some experts said the final package erased food system commitments. The negotiations themselves were chaotic. According to reports, there was even a fire inside the official conference zone, forcing a temporary evacuation, a stark metaphor for the heated political climate inside. Divisions between wealthy and developing nations, between fossil fuel producers and climate victims, made every step painful. The final compromise felt too many like a retreat. And here's the brutal truth. Science doesn't wait for politics. Recent reports confirm that to keep global warming under the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit, global emissions must be halved by 2030. COP30 reaffirmed that goal. But it failed to lay out a structural plan to get there. That gap isn't just political small print. For many, it's a death sentence. For flood-prone islands, low-lying delta countries, and drought-scarred nations, climate change isn't a future risk. It's today's reality. Waiting until 2035 for adaptation finance may be too late. By then, entire communities could be displaced. This is a crisis of fairness. The richest countries caused most of the historical emissions, yet the poorest suffer first and worst. COP30 acknowledged this injustice, but it didn't give poor countries the security of solid, binding support. For those of us in regions like South Asia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, the outcomes of COP30 hit close to home. From unpredictable monsoons to melting glaciers and coastal erosion, these impacts are our daily reality. The adaptation finance, if it's delivered, could support flood defenses, drought-resistant crops, and early warning systems. The just transition mechanism could create new, clean energy jobs. But all of this depends on real implementation, not just promises. COP30 once again exposed the deep inequality in our world. Nations responsible for the highest emissions resisted strong, binding commitments, while developing countries demanded justice. For people in higher-risk countries, the message is clear: we cannot wait. Activism, transparency, and global pressure must move faster than ever. This isn't just about politics. It's about our water, our food, our health, and our homes. So, was it all a waste? Despite its failures, COP30 should not be dismissed. It kept global cooperation alive. 195 countries agreed to work together under the Belém package. In a world this divided, that's no small feat. It framed climate change as a justice issue, minding the world it's about people, not just carbon percentages. It put financing and real action back on the table, creating a foundation we can build on. And it gave us a sliver of hope that humanity can still talk, negotiate, and maybe, just maybe, save itself. COP30 painted a stark picture of a world at a crossroads, between ambition and delay, hope and compromise, survival and denial. It concluded with a pact that was neither a total victory nor a complete failure. A pact that keeps the door to a livable future slightly ajar, only if we act now. If nations deliver on their promises, if people hold them accountable, and if societies insist on real change. This is not the end. It's the beginning of the next, most crucial chapter. The question is, will we choose to walk through that door together or watch it close forever? When the final gavel struck and the delegates applauded, the world thought COP30 was over. But the real story begins where the televised ceremony ended behind closed doors. In hushed corridors where decisions are not written on documents but carved into the fate of humanity. Because outside the official halls, a storm was gathering. A storm of anger, betrayal, fear, and desperate hope. As the world's ministers boarded their jets back home, the streets outside the venue told a different story. Thousands of activists, indigenous tribes, environmental defenders, and youth movements who felt they had been silenced. Their signs read, "Promises don't stop floods. Climate justice delayed is climate justice denied, and fossil fuels are killing us. Why won't they stop?" For them, COP30 wasn't a diplomatic victory, was a warning. Observers later revealed details that never reached the public stage. Inside the negotiation rooms, the pressure was unlike any previous summit. Oil-rich states refused to accept binding fossil fuel phase-out language. Coal-producing nations demanded protection for their economies. Industrial superpowers negotiated loopholes behind closed doors. Developing countries begged for survival funding, and island nations pleaded not for money, but for existence. One negotiator from a climate-vulnerable country reportedly said, "We are not negotiating statistics. We are negotiating the right to live. But power speaks louder than pain." A powerful delegate was overheard saying, "Economies come first. Climate comes second." And with those words, the most important phrase of the draft agreement disappeared: the demand for a global fossil fuel phase-out. What remained was diplomacy disguised as progress. While world leaders celebrated the so-called Bellum package, millions watched helplessly, knowing exactly what that compromise meant. Let's be clear about who won and who lost. The winners. Countries whose wealth depends on oil, coal, and gas. Corporations whose profits rise as the planet warms. And politicians who care more about election cycles than climate cycles. And the losers. Poor farming communities watching their crops die under relentless heat waves. Flood victims sleeping on broken embankments. Children breathing poisoned air in cities trapped under smog. And of course, future generations who will inherit a burning planet. Somewhere in a small coastal village, a mother looked at the rising sea and whispered, "How do I save my children from something we did not cause?" That is the silent tragedy COP30 could not solve. The night after the agreement was signed, protests erupted around the conference zone. Indigenous tribes beat drums of resistance. Activists lit candles for climate victims. Youth movements chanted, "We will not die quietly." One young activist cried to the cameras, "We are not asking for miracles. We are asking for a future." Their voices echo even now, demanding action not tomorrow, but today. The science behind this fear is getting clearer and more terrifying. Scientists estimate that at current rates, the world could reach 1.7 to 1.8 degrees Celsius of warming as early as 2033. That number isn't abstract. It means billions of climate refugees, unlivable heat in major cities, mass food shortages, water wars, a permanent extinction of species we share this planet with, and the collapse of the natural systems that sustain all life. Every single degree matters. Every fraction of a degree matters. Every decision we make today writes the story of tomorrow. And that is why many scientists are calling COP30 a half step toward a burning future. The third future is collapse. It's a story of failure. Promises remain just promises. Heat pushes the world beyond our control. Wars for water and food begin. Future generations will curse the leaders of today for their inaction. And then there's a fourth future, the rebellion. This is where people rise. The world finally realizes that leaders won't save us, and so the people take power. Movements of students, scientists, farmers, and workers unite to force change from the ground up. Which future will we inherit? The answer is being written right now in every policy meeting, in every election, in every protest, and in every voice that refuses to be silenced. COP30 taught the world one brutal truth. Hope is not a plan. Action is. We cannot wait for world leaders to rescue us. Real change has always begun from the ground up. It starts with people who refuse to remain silent, with youth who are unafraid to challenge power, with communities who protect their forests, rivers, and land. It begins with scientists who stand for truth, not politics, and creators who spread awareness, inspire courage, and move hearts. This isn't just information, it's a call to rise. We stand at the edge of history. One step forward, and we build a world worth living in. One step backward, and we risk losing everything we love. The power to decide does not belong only to presidents, billionaires, or negotiators. It belongs to humanity. It belongs to us. So ask yourself, what will you say when your child asks, "What did you do when there was still time?" Will we be the generation that turned away in fear? Or will we be the generation that fought for the future with everything we had? The world will remember our choice, and the time to choose is now. Don't wait for change, be the change. Stand up, speak out. Act if you believe the earth deserves better. Share this message. Let it reach every screen, every home, every heart. Raise awareness, spread truth, demand justice. Together, we can turn the tide. Thanks for watching.